When you rise, you gain visibility. So for you to be able to shine, you need to rise. You don't shine under the table. You don't shine in obscurity. Hello, welcome or welcome back to the How Platform. On this table, we learn, we grow, we become, and we win. And in today's video, I'll be sharing lessons on the process of rising. Because for you to grow and become better in your profession, in your career, in your business, in your ministry, you have to rise. For you to be able to make an impact or to make an impression or get an attention or even become better in whatever you're doing, you have to rise. And in today's lesson, I'll be sharing the process of rising using the story of the prodigal son. So my name is Yewande, and I'm an economist by profession with over 15 years of experience in banking. And I've been thinking a lot about arise and shine, for your light has come. That is from Isaiah 60 verse 1. Isaiah 60 verse 1 said, arise. To arise is a process. Arise means you have to get up. You have to pull yourself up. You have to step up. You have to raise and elevate yourself. And there is a process behind that. It doesn't just happen with a click. It doesn't just happen automatically. There is a determination that informs rising. There's an interest to rise. Before anyone could rise in any area or in anything, there needs to be an intention to rise, a determination to rise, a desire to rise, a discipline that follows rising, and a consistency within rising. So in the last video, I shared about the 5 key things that are important for you to rise and for you to shine. Those 5 things they build the foundation for rising or shining in any level or at any space. Because rising is dynamic, and shining too is also dynamic. That you are rising, that you are shining at this space doesn't mean that you will continue to that your shining in that space will continue to remain. You have to rise to shine again. So we rise, we shine, then we rise again, and then we shine again. It is a dynamic process. So let me just use an example. So while I was in college, I did very well in college. I was able to get a good grade in college, but the college degree is enough to get me my first job. But for me to be able to rise, for me to be able to shine, for me to be able to levitate and get better and get promotion, I have to rise again and then shine again. So that's the way you want to think about it. There is a process behind rising. There is a process behind shining. And in the video that I shared during the women's conference, you will see that I highlighted 5 things that needs to happen. Because rising is dynamic, rising is progressive, and shining is also dynamic. Shining is also progressive. You can be shining when you were in elementary, but that doesn't carry you forward into the business world. Your shining in the elementary will take you to your middle school, and the shining in your middle school will take you to the college, and then the college will take you. So there's a progression to it. There is a process to it. So you want to keep that in mind, that whatever you have now, whatever area where you are shining right now, depends on the rising that has happened in the past. And for you to be able to rise above that level, there needs to be a process of rising that has to happen for you to rise and shine above the level that you are currently operating in. So there are 5 things that I said, because in this kingdom, as children of God, we walk by faith. Everything that has to happen to us as children of God they are purchased by our level of faith. Faith is very, very key in our walk with God. Faith is very, very key in whatever we become in this kingdom. Because in the journey of our faith, who we become is way more important than what we get. So we're trying to become the businessman with some level of profit. We're trying to become that professional athlete. We are trying to become that effective leader in politics. For you to become all that in this kingdom, there is a level of faith that comes with that. So we walk by faith. We walk by faith. And when it comes to walking by faith, the speed that we walk with is a walk. That means there is a step-by-step guide to it. It is not something that you rush. It takes patience. The Bible says with patience and endurance, that is how we become. So faith is key to rising and shining. And the second thing that highlights is that faith is how we walk. And that faith is not only in the process. You have to have that faith in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do what you desire to do. So faith is key. The second thing that I mentioned is that we rise by courage. We rise by courage. And today's video, I want to unpack how we rise by courage. How do we rise by courage? You know, courage is something that you have to build from the inside out. Courage is something that comes from the inside before it is manifested in the physical. So we rise by courage, we shine by confident alignment to light. When we confidently align ourselves to the light, to our own light, not to the light of somebody else, not to the light of somebody's potential, but to our own light. Because there are levels of glory that each and every one of us carry. So we align our shining to our own light. And our own light comes from knowing our own comparative advantage, where what we do that easily. Your shining lies in your comparative advantage, in your area of strength, in your area of skill, in what you do easily. So we walk by faith, we rise by courage, we shine by confident alignment to light. And light is a composition of different elements. You know, when we're talking about light, it's not something that you can easily define that it comes from electricity, because even people who don't have sight still have foresight. That means light is beyond what we can see with our physical eyes. And two sources of light that I've highlighted in the last video, and if you have not seen it, I encourage you to check it out. Two sources of light is the light that comes from Jesus, the bright and morning star, the light of the world. And within the light that we draw from Jesus, every one of us carry some level of light. And the level of your light is what you would use to impact, to influence others, to connect to others, and to help others. And then alignment to your own light requires knowing your own space, knowing your position, and knowing your audience, because we shine in front of the right audience. So I've talked about we walk by faith, we rise by courage, we shine by confident alignment to light, we fly by instructions. We fly by instructions. When you see pilots, when they take up that cockpit, when they reach there is an instruction. First, the crane comes in, pull back the plane, and then there is a progression. The plane first is driving slow, and then when it's about to take off, it tries to gain momentum. It speeds up, and then by the time it gains that momentum, the aeroplane is able to levitate and rise. Flying is by instruction. There is an instruction that comes from that walking, to that running, to that gaining the momentum, and then levitating. Levitating means that you are rising. We are rising, and you are not being suspended by anything. That's what it means to levitate. And we levitate. We get to a point when we are flying by instruction, and then we get to a point that we are soaring. Soaring is that level where we levitate. We soar by grace. If everything that we have in life, if everything that you have in life is based on works, you would overwork yourself. If everything you possess now is based on the efforts that you have put in, you would overwork yourself. And that is why it is key to rely on that grace, the grace that comes from people, the grace that comes from the Almighty to levitate. And by the time you levitate, that is when the productivity part of your glory comes in. That is when you are not doing before the results start showing. That is when you are not putting too many efforts before you start seeing results. If everything we become in life is based on all the efforts that we put in, we will be overworking ourselves. Our God himself Right from the beginning, the Bible says in the beginning, right from the beginning, God himself was existing. He didn't have to do anything to be God. He was existing. That level where you continue to soar without putting too many efforts, that is the process that comes with the grace of God. And God himself has shown us right from Genesis to even the book of Revelation how to walk in that grace. Because we are created in his image. Before the beginning, God existed. He didn't have to do anything to be God. He existed and he was God. He was resting. And then during the creation, the Bible said there was evening and there was night. There was evening and there was morning and there was the next day. There was evening and there was morning and there was the next day. God was walking out of his rest. And then we continue to see, even after God finished with the whole creation, God rested. When we want to talk about soaring means you know where your strength and your momentum comes from, and you levitate. You levitate. You levitate. And in subsequent video, I will touch more on the soaring that comes with grace, using the story of the eagle. In today's video, I want to focus on the process of rising through courage, using the story from that Luke 15. Luke 15, 11 through 32, the story of the prodigal son. You might think to yourself, what can I draw from rising from the story of the prodigal son? There's a lot to know, because we know for that boy, he rose and he was able to pull himself out. There were a couple of things that I want to highlight in my notes around why you should rise. You might be thinking to yourself, I've been talking about rising and shining. Why do I even need to rise? What's the point about this? Why do you need to rise? I want you to think to yourself, people that have risen in a particular area, talk about Maya Angelou when it comes to artists that have used their word to shape the world. People like people in the world of fashion, like Versace, who have created content that could easily change the fashion industry. People who have risen in the technological space, like Mark Zuckerberg, like Steve Jobs, who have created products that we're able to see. People have become a name brand. How did these people get to that point? Why did they even rise? Why do you need to rise? You want to think of different people and ask yourself, why do you need to rise? And when you're talking about rising, we are not talking about it so that you can draw attention to yourself. Like I said in that video, you want to think of your rising as being able to shine the light that is within you, so that others that are connected to your destiny can see and they can begin to walk in their own destiny and in their own shining. Because what we don't understand is that people are connected to our destiny. The Bible said in that book of Isaiah that on the year that King Uzziah died, Isaiah saw there are people, there are events that are connected to our destiny. There is a light that is connected to your destiny, and there are other destinies that are connected to your light. I'm talking about, why do you even need to rise? Why should you rise? Because when you rise, you gain visibility. When you rise, you gain visibility. You become visible. People would know. When people talk about organization, they will know the CEO, they know the CFO, those people who are at the top. When you rise, you gain visibility. So for you to be able to shine, you need to rise. You don't shine under the table. You don't shine in obscurity. You don't shine when you are insecure and you are trying to hide your light, and you are trying to hide your potential, and you are trying to hide your strength, and you are not highlighting your skill. You rise, and your rising is what gives you visibility for others to see you, and for others to see your capacity and what you could do. So when you rise, you gain perspective. You see things differently. The reason why Sometimes we are myopic in our thinking is because our perspective is limited. Our perspective is limited. The story that comes to my mind was the story of Elijah and his prophets when the king wanted to capture him, and the servants came to him and said, "Oh, we are dead. See, the king brought soldiers to capture us." And the man of God, the prophet, laughed and he said, "You don't know what I see from my own end." Because what we see from our physical side is way, way, way lower than what we see with our spiritual eyes. And the prophet said, God opened his eyes, and then he saw the soldiers, the unseen soldiers, the full battalion of God that was standing with him. So when you rise, you gain perspective. You gain perspective. You see things differently. So sometimes when you are arguing with people and you're trying to convince them about your dream, it's because they are still not at your level. So they will not be able to understand what you're saying. Some of you are sharing your dream with people who have not risen to the level where you have to be able to gain enough perspective to see things the way you see it. Because when you rise, you gain perspective. You begin to see things differently. You begin to see men differently. You begin to see leadership differently. You see your community differently. You see your resources differently. You see the community resources differently. You see your government differently. You gain perspective. You gain perspective. When you rise, and I'm talking about why should you rise? When you are at the low level, there are so much noise at the low level. Imagine when you're driving on the road, you're hearing other cars blaring, you are hearing even some drivers fighting, or even somebody trying to honk you or stop you, or people driving carelessly. There is so much noise. But when you rise above the noise. You rise above the gossip. You rise above the discouragement. You rise above the weaknesses and the projection of weaknesses that people kind of project on you. That is why you should rise. That is why you should rise. You need to rise above the noises. You need to rise above the voices of insecurity for you to shine. You need to rise above the gossip for you to shine. And that rising is what makes you levitate above the noise. You know, when you rise, you hear clearly. You hear clearly. Either hearing from God or hearing from people, you hear clearly. When you rise as a mentor and you are listening to your mentee, you hear them clearly because what they are saying, you've been through it, you understand it, and you have a better experience and something better to share with them because you have seen it clearly, you've heard clearly. When you rise, you hear clearly. When you rise in an organization, you are not only hearing about what a business line is doing, but you understand the whole vision and the mission of the organization. And because you understand the whole mission and the vision of the organization, you know what the development strategy that your team is trying to get and how it fits into the vision and the big vision or the mission of the organization. When you rise, you hear clearly. Something that I like to do is taking a walk. I like to walk sometimes when I want to think or I just want to get some things out of my head. I will just take a walk around my neighborhood. And the way our family homes are structured in Minnesota is that people sometimes leave their backyard. So they will have open backyard. So you can easily walk into your neighbor's backyard. I mean, everybody understands each person's boundary, but we have open backyard. And sometimes people will have a deck at their backyard. So I was taking a walk on one evening and I saw these two women. So immediately I noticed the two women, they are different. They are in their own different home, neighbors. And both of them were talking from their deck at their backyard. And I was just taking a walk. I was on the sidewalk. And the other woman was telling the other one that's the dog. So there was a dog beside her and she was saying the dog had tomato. And the other woman from the neighbor was saying, "Oh no, don't do that," and was trying to have a chat with the dog. And I told myself, because I was just walking, I was like about 200 yards away from these two homes. And I asked myself, why was I able to hear both of them? Even their conversation, they were not kind of screaming, they were just having a normal conversation. Why was I able to hear? I was able to hear because they were at the higher level, and that sound easily transferred. Besides sand, light is the only thing that transfers faster than sand. So because they are at the higher level, that sand could easily transfer. And I was hearing them, because when you rise, you hear audibly. You speak, and your voice is even louder. You gain audience. When you rise, you gain audience. I wasn't trying to gossip. I just learned something from that. That when you rise, your voice is audible. When you rise, you gain an audience. When you rise, you see clearly. When you rise above the noise. Another thing is that when you rise, you command attention. You command attention. Recently, I had an interaction with one of the governors from the board of governors, and she was sharing that while in academia, she would have to share and research work, you Twitter it, share it, promote it, present it at the conference for people to know what she's doing and to know her contribution. But since she joined the board of governors as one of the first female governor at the board of governors of the Federal Reserve Board, she doesn't have to command that kind of attention. Her rising gets other attention. If she's saying anything on the economy, people are paying attention. The Wall Street is picking her up in their article. The New York Times is carrying her. Bloomberg is ready to talk to her because she has risen. When you rise, you command attention. And that is why you need to rise. When you rise, you expand your influence. You engage your capacity to help others rise. If you're trying to pull others up, you have to be at a higher stage for you to be able to pull them up. And that is why you need to rise. Because until you rise, many people who are waiting for you to pull them up, they will be waiting forever. If you don't rise, they will be waiting forever if you don't rise. Rising is a dynamic process, and everything rises at some point. Whether we like it or not, we are all going to age. Whether we like it or not, evil rise if we don't do anything. Good things rise if we do something. Everything rises. That is why you need to rise. So, what is the process behind rising? How do we rise? In that Luke 15, we saw the story of these two boys. The younger one came to the father and said, "Father, give me my inheritance." And he traveled and he wasted all the inheritance that the father gave to him. And then the father kept waiting for him to come back home. But the son was first having fun, was having parties, enjoying his life, and he mingled with the wrong crowd and lost all the wealth that the father transferred to him. And in that Luke 15, the Bible made us understand. In that verse 17, it said, "And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will rise," that is verse 18, "and go to my father. And we say unto him, Father, I've sinned against heaven before thee, and I'm no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of your hired servants." And he arose and came to his father. But when he was at a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, everything that he has rehearsed, he said to his father, "Father, I've sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and I'm no more worthy to be called thy son." But the father said to his servant, "Bring forth the best robe, let's celebrate. My son was lost, now he's found. Let's celebrate." And he called one of the servants and asked them to celebrate, to bring out the animal. And when your older brother got home, he saw there was a party. Why was there a party in the house? And then the older brother has, and they said, your brother is back and your father is celebrating. I mean, that story is a very interesting story. I encourage you to read it. Luke 15, 11 to 32. So, how do you rise? How do you rise? So, for this boy, we saw that he came to his senses. He came to himself. He was self-aware. He came to his sense. He said, this is not the level where I'm supposed to be. I can do better than this. Even the servants in my father's house, they are doing better than I am doing. He came to himself, in his senses. He knew his worth. He knew his worth. He knew what he's capable of. He knew his worth. He knew what he's capable of. He knew his value in the sight of his father. And he determined by himself. Because when you talk about rising and shining, there is a little that somebody else can do for you. There is a self-determination that is involved in the process of rising. So let's talk about what this boy did. The first thing, what did this boy do to show that he was ready to rise? What did the boy do to show that he was ready to rise? First, he assessed the situation. You have to have an assessment of your current situation. Do you like where you are? You have to, before you can rise up of any situation, you want to first of all assess the situation. Is this driving me towards my goal or away from my goal? This situation could be a relationship. It could be a condition. It could be your work situation. It could be your business current status. You have to assess the situation. I've started this business for a while now. Is this where I should be? You have to assess the situation. What has been the gain? What has been the losses for the past years or months that I've been doing this? You have to come to a good assessment of the situation. And assessing the situation, sometimes you have to get a journal and write what is good about this situation, what is bad. What do I want to continue to do and what do I have to drop? So this boy came to himself. Because whatever you don't get uncomfortable with will continue to persist. Whatever you get comfortable with, you're signaling to God that you are happy with it. Because when you are not uncomfortable, you will not pray about that situation. When you are not uncomfortable about something that is bad, maybe about a health condition that you are not happy with, you will not pray and you will get comfortable with it. Some of you are too comfortable in a bad situation. You need to rise. The prodigal son said, I will go because my servant, the servant of my father, they are doing way better than I am doing now. You have to assess the situation to be able to rise. Know what is good about that situation. Know what is bad. Know the process to drop the bad and then rise up with the good. Learn your lesson from the good and rise up. That's the first thing. You have to assess the situation. And you have to get uncomfortable with the things that you don't like. About maybe your job, or about maybe your situation, about maybe the current condition. You have to know what you don't like. You have to get uncomfortable with what you don't like. You have to get uncomfortable with it. You have to, because that getting uncomfortable with what you don't like is what will fuel your desire to rise. That is what will fuel your desire to get out of that situation and to rise. I remember when I was still, when I first got to the US and I was trying to navigate our immigration journey, and at some point I was a stay-at-home mom, but I knew that that was just a short time. And suddenly, it was as if God wanted to push me out of that comfort zone. God wanted to push me out of that comfort zone. There was a shock. There was a darkness. It came over my husband's career. And I told myself, I don't want to be in this dark situation again. I don't want to be in a situation whereby if something happens to my husband's job, then there is nothing else to rely on. I don't want to be in a situation that if something happens to his job, we would have to either go back to Nigeria or find a job quickly. And I said, I need to rise. I need to level up. I need to go back to school and add value to myself so that I can support him. I got uncomfortable with that situation. I prayed. I had kids. I wrote that exams I needed to do to be able to go back to school. And you have to get uncomfortable with it. Maybe right now your business is not getting the revenue that you're supposed to get with, but you are shy. You don't want to go on social media and promote it. You have to assess the situation. You have been in this business, people are making money out of it, but you are not doing well. That means there's something wrong in what you're doing. You need to get uncomfortable with that situation. Because whatever you don't detest, you can't resist. Whatever you don't detest, continue to persist. You have to get uncomfortable with that situation. For you to rise, you have to get uncomfortable with your current situation. And like I said, rising is dynamic, shining is dynamic. That you are shining at this level doesn't mean you can't shine at this level. But for you to be able to shine at this level, you need to rise. And that is why you want to get uncomfortable. You are not complacent. You want to rise. The third thing for this boy to have said, you have to assess the situation. You have to get uncomfortable with the things that you don't like about the situation. And then you need to know where you are going. When that boy sat down, he didn't say, I will go back to my friends, my party friends, or go back to my brother. He said, I will go back to my father. I will go back. You need to know where you want to land. When you want to do something, you need to know where you want to land. And for some of you, you need to put a number on that. So when I'm just going to use an example. When I started sharing the teachings here on this YouTube channel, I knew I wanted to share the teachings, and I knew subscribers are important, because the subscribers means people, and people are souls, and every soul matters to God. So I use the number of subscribers to gain my audience. I use the number of likes and the comments I'm getting to gain my engagement and my interaction. You need to know where you want to land. I put a number on the number of subscribers that I want to have by the end of the year. I'm shooting for 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. You need to know where you want to land. You need to know. If you're trying to go back to school, which particular course do you want to study? Which particular career path do you want to follow? When you're trying to gain those customers in your business, you want to know, where are your target audience? Where are they? If you are if your target audience are in the younger group, you need to know where they are. TikTok, Instagram, where they are. How do you engage them? Short content. Those are the things that you can use to engage a younger target audience. If you're trying to mingle and promote your business, you need to know how to connect with other business in the community, other small business or business partnership or business association in your community. You need to know where you are going. How do you rise? The process of rising, that's what we are talking about today. So you need to know where you are going, and you have to engage your self-determination. You have to determine within yourself that I want to rise, and I'm going to do everything possible within my own capacity to rise. I'm going to do everything possible, not within others' capacity. We saw for that boy, for the prodigal son, he didn't say, I will arise and go to my father, and I will get one of my party friends to go with me to beg my father. Everything that he planned it out to rely on what he can do. The Bible says, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. You too can do all things through Christ that strengthens you. You too can rise through that self-determination. And there are two components to self-determination. First is your self-will. The second thing is your discipline. In your self-determination, you have to be disciplined. The boy stood up and he started walking. He didn't turn back. He was disciplined and he was consistent. He started walking, not knowing that the Father was already waiting for him. You have to be determined to achieve and to rise. You have to be determined, because that determination is what will drive you to the place of prayer. That God, I want you to help me to rise up. In my career, I desire a promotion. In my business, I desire an expansion. In my marriage, I desire happiness. And by the time you start praying about it, because that self-determination will drive you to prayer, and by the time you start praying about it, you will see that instructions will start coming. I started with, we walk by faith, we rise by courage, we fly by instruction. We fly by instruction. We shine by confident alignment to light. We soar by grace. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. I love you. I'm rooting for you. Go and win. Go and shine. Keep rising. Keep shining. And when you shine, keep rising again. God bless you. And see you in the next video. Bye.